Welcome back to the Incredible Machines podcast, where we sit down with incredible people doing incredible things. Today we chat with Kuki Shah, an entrepreneur who scaled a family business to beat multinational competitors, exited multiple ventures, and now coaches leaders across the Middle East and Africa. In this episode, we talk about bullying, belonging, and service, beating the multinationals, exiting, moving, and trusting again. So settle in as we dive deep into an episode filled with vulnerability, hard-won business lessons, and the ongoing work of knowing yourself well enough to serve others authentically. Let's dive in with the incredible Kuki Shah. Thank you for the compliment about the show and you've seen and that sort of thing. Uh, I, I because I'm so excited that you're coming on and that sort of stuff. But the whenever your name is mentioned, I think I got it first time. I can't remember when we first met actually, but I remember when I first actually spent more time with you.
Yeah.
I think was in Egypt.
Yeah.
So 2023,
Unleashed, yeah.
and that was like I absolutely love it a bit. Saskia's like was so excited to
Introduce that.
introduce you and like have you around it, cookies coming and that sort of stuff. So yeah, thanks thanks for
No.
making the time and that sort of thing.
Absolutely. Look, it's a privilege. When I've thought of podcasts, and when I started listening to some and the names that come up, and I always think of them as influencers, those powerful weights that have got a lot of wisdom and knowledge to share. And I've always struggled with it, to be honest. Even now that this
For
coaching,
yourself,
for
personally.
myself,
Mm.
that I'm not that person, that I don't believe. And this is all self-doubt, self-talk, is like, how can I go in and share lessons that are not, what do I have to share that's not already out
Mm.
there? Or
Mm.
I'm not that inspirational or anything of that sort that I feel like I have the qualification to get onto a podcast and to talk to people. It's changing. It's especially like in LinkedIn. I've been told by so many that I must post to start creating a brand for myself now that I'm a coach. And I've been a coach, but now to officially starting my coach practice, like you have to build your brand, and in order to do that, you have to market yourself. You have to, and that's it's so uncomfortably with me because when I looked at LinkedIn, it's like, hey, I just had a coffee and I'm going to make a life lesson out of it. What are the learnings and things? And I'm like, I just had a coffee. Like, I enjoyed the coffee. That's it. I'm not thinking much. Like, there's no life lesson there for me that I want to preach. And it's almost like that sales consultant that's always trying to extract value and push it over to you. And I hate that around consultancy and coaching, and where, you're posting things about lessons around everything. And I'm like, I'm not that guy. But then I've had kickback as to, you don't have to, you just show up as your authentic self. And what does that look like? And that's when when I was watching your podcast and, we're saying we're having conversations. I'm so comfortable having a conversation as opposed to, okay, tell me about this topic and give us some value and things of that sort. So I always got to frame it back as to, okay, take away how you're supposed to show up and just talk normally. It's around.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think you did the same thing when I originally asked you, and then you've done a bit of it now. Is 99% of the people we approach, they're like, there's actually a couple I've seen different routes. I don't know if we've discussed this, Luke, but they do this thing where I do the Brian and Banner story, and
Yeah.
then I ask you to be on the podcast,
Yeah.
and then I think it's quite difficult to say no then, but that's the sales and me. But and it is authentic. It
Yeah.
is because I want it to be a good show, and I think you should have a podcast and there are a whole bunch of things, and it'll just be good. And it's such a gift for me to be able to spend the time and extract because I will. That's what I do.
Yeah.
I work. I'm always trying to learn stuff and things like that. And then if I can get it right, then the audience, the people listening,
Sure.
hopefully benefit from the learnings that I get and we share, and it's free. So it's just an absolute gift. But you did the same thing where the other people do. They're like, oh, I really appreciate it. So it's like grateful, but I don't think of myself like that. And then other people do. They're like, oh, thanks, I appreciate it. And then they go, you didn't do this, but I had someone recently do it, and I've had a couple of people do it, where they start going, yeah, I did this thing, that I was involved in the UN, and they start trying to prove. I was like, I've already asked you to come on. You don't have to prove it to me. Like, they start validating it for themselves, like
Oh,
why they should be. And I just say to people, like, trust me, like, I'm right. You'll realize I'm right at some stage.
yeah.
And I like being right. So like uh, I'm aware of that too, guys. By the way, that so I'm working on that. But you'll realize that it's the right call, and we'll go through it. There's only ever been one guest, and that said, "Sure, I'm in," because I'm an incredible machine, and they're like, "Came on." And he's got a book, and he says, people can guess who it is
Yeah,
when they say
I
that.
already have a name in mind.
Yeah, but he has to be like that, because he's fighting a massive disease, like a thing. He shouldn't be here.
Mm.
So his mindset is different to anyone that
Yeah.
I've ever had in this chair, or ever spoken to at all. I've never met anyone like that. I don't think I've ever met anyone like that guy. And he is an incredible machine. But it was just interesting how he's like, cool, I'm in. Yeah, I am this. And he just came.
Yeah.
And he was like, but generally everyone else is like, they go through two different journeys where they're like, I don't think I am, and then eventually they would realize I'm right, or the other ones they start to prove me right by themselves. Yeah, I did this thing with the UN. I did this thing. Yeah, I also did this, and I'm like, you don't have to tell me now. I want to talk about it on the podcast. Like, that's
So it's. I was just over the last year or two, what Umbreen's told me is that if you don't trust in yourself, do me a favor and trust the people.
Yeah.
Right. The people that you trust. Lean in on that. So if they're telling you that there's value in you, if you don't trust yourself and you feel like you don't have value, lean in on the others, right? Because if you're trusting them, then surely from that perspective, you gotta view it from their eyes, and there's a reason why you trust them. And over the last year, that's exactly what I've been doing. And with that, I've actually been finding that confidence, and I can see it, and I'm manifesting it now. To say that it's around like facilitation, for instance. I doubted myself for so long, and it's still work in progress in terms of, oh, did I do my best? Did I actually drive value for them? And we were having the conversation with Anton just now on the drive here. No, actually today morning, and I was like, this has been an incredible journey over the last year and a half. I started my journey here in South Africa, and that was the first time I was standing in front of a room, and being uncomfortable, but then getting it right. And I only say that I got it right is because of what people said. I didn't trust myself, and again, I did that today morning. It's like, yeah, I'm still quite, and he's like, no, stop. Let's talk this through. And then as we talked through this, it was like, okay, I get it. I am good. But what happens is it takes just one person to say something wrong. It's so fragile, but I'm still working on it, and I sit with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I work with this. Yeah, I connect with you on that. There's this 5-to-1 ratio, negative to positive. Have you heard of that before? So it's
Yeah.
like, I actually heard about this. I couldn't find this online, so if someone can send it, it'd be amazing. But some calculation, the numbers just sometimes interest me, and that it was like the amount of antimatter in the universe, or the thing, is estimated at 5 times the amount of matter. So the
I
amount,
heard it on stage. Yeah.
really? Okay, so the amount of negative matter, and I don't understand, and this is not that type of podcast where we get into that, but like, is a 5 times ratio to the positive net. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, because I know that they've whatever calculated it, but um, a negative strike, one negative thing will strike you 5, will level
Yeah.
5 positives. So you have to have 5 people telling you you're brilliant, you should do a good job, and
Yeah.
then just one going like negative, and it cancels out the
Yeah.
experience and it's negative. So it's talked about in relationships. So if you can figure out a relationship's going to succeed or not,
Yeah.
you can do those calculations. So are you having more than 5 positive to every negative relation? And then if it's that, they'll
Yeah.
fail because the negative will outweigh. We just came from Ignite now, and I was on stage, and
Yeah.
I loved it. I enjoyed every second of it, but it was
So did
really out of my comfort zone. And one of the thing, and I've taken the feedback, but and it was overwhelmingly positive. I can say it, but like, because it's not my words. So it was really cool to get that feedback. But for some of the reasons, I still look for the negative, even in their positive. This like it was like whether you can
Yeah.
find negatives in someone and be like, oh, that's a mask. But I got this from Cindy Norcott when I get
Yeah.
a compliment. I don't know if you've ever heard this before, but it was when someone gives you a compliment, just say thank you or tell me more. She said the other one is,
Oh,
you've got great taste. Tell me more.
yeah.
So Cindy's a
I guess
incredible
that's the
machine.
second level of leaning in. First is just the acceptance, because that's already uncomfortable.
So uncomfortable.
But then as you get comfortable with that, you're like, okay, tell me more, and that's going to build on that confidence for sure. I like that.
But yeah, so I just do it as a joke because
Mm.
I do it, but then it's very useful as well because you're saying you want to work out, like, so why did you like it? Because I would like to do more of that
Yeah.
and get feedback. But I love that. I love what you said there in terms of trust the other people,
Yeah.
because the other people are telling you, and that's what I saying with the guests, like just trust me. I'm going to be right here.
Yeah. And in fact, do you know what? As much as I'm here for that very reason,
Mm,
I want to see genuinely the outcome of it.
mm,
And I want to see what other people see, to be honest.
mm. Do you think you
Because,
can?
sorry,
Do you think you can see what other people see?
in me,
Yeah.
uh, I don't know. And that's what I want to, that's exactly what I want to work at. So when, after this conversation, and then when I look at it, when I look at the final product, I want to sit around with some people and unpack it with, to say, okay, where was it that you got value from here, so that I can understand, and then I can start learning those patterns as to, okay, this means something, this means something. So when I show up like this at times, or just being more self-aware to help myself build on that confidence, because I'm always second guessing, but I'm second guessing as generalized
Mm,
as to how I show up or my skill sets,
mm,
you know. But when I'm in my natural state, I'm doing something right that people are seeing, but I'm not aware of it. So
mm,
if I could become a little bit more aware of that,
mm.
maybe I can become more intentional in terms of how I show up.
And
Maybe that
knowing,
might not be my authentic self, but
no, I think it, I think it would be, yeah, no, you can be careful about the loops. So
yeah, no,
the,
because this is the thing. If I'm saying I want to be aware, like if this is who I'm showing up without structure, without thinking. That's my authentic self. But then the more aware I become as to, okay, these are the bits that add value, and then I start changing myself to showing up more like that, as in, this is the value. It's almost like it's serving someone else as opposed to, it may not be serving me.
okay, so a question, but I want to get to the serving you part and serving other people part. But I think the intention, I would think that your awareness is authentically you, because you not something it's something that we practice, and
Yeah.
we want to be better at being aware, and that I got this quote from Malcolm Gladwell, but I don't know, I think it's um necessarily his, but I'll come back to it because but the awareness is key. And yeah, I think you can get trapped in that because you can start over, it sounds like overthinking. So
Yeah.
one of my superpowers that I leave off
Yeah.
in the presentation, because there's a bunch of them there are too many that I'm figuring out and working with, and that
Sure.
can be overthinking. And that's where the voices come in on the plane ride
Uh-huh.
back and that sort of thing, and I have to get them cheering. when I can get the voices cheering, then I'm in safe space, and then I can just be authentic and that sort of thing. Because it's
Yeah.
not easy all the time to get the voices cheering because they're telling you that you generally will be your biggest critic. I love that you've taking the feedback from others, but as I understand in the time I spent with you, and I've just been doing the research on this with my team, but also just calling people around, like I said, um, I think servant leadership, your picture mightn't be in the dictionary next to. So like that, because even as you were speaking earlier, and now you're doing this work so that you can be of value to other people.
Yeah.
But somehow you realize that you've got to add value to yourself, um, so that you can be more valued. And you're number 2 on the Enneagram.
Yes.
Yeah, same. I am too. So might be an overshare, but like anyway, like so how like, how is that for you? Like, we
S-
can go a number of ways. Where right now you want to talk about
uh,
it, or I think the Enneagram. Have you spent much time on that?
Not so much. I tell you where it begins.
Okay.
It's growing up and being bullied.
I was gonna go back because it's 6 years. It's something like 6 years old. Is what the last thing I heard about is when you start to establish the number, the Enneagram
I
number. And I know you all
think
of the numbers, guys, and it's a
yeah,
labeling system and it's a whatever, but like it's my favorite. It's
yeah,
my business coach. She did it, she uses it.
okay,
So I've been exposed to it. I've done it with management teams before.
yeah,
I love the Enneagram, but it was like from childhood that you established that what the biggest part of
yeah,
your being is.
yeah.
So
And it
being
was
bullied.
it was when I was, I think, 8 or 8 to 9 years old. Moved from an culturally Indian school in Kenya over to a British schooling system where there was more diversity. But when I went across, number one, my accent was unacceptable. My looks, I've never grown up with, as I grew up, I've always had glasses since the age of 6 or 7. But I never wore my glasses at school to begin with because it was geeky. I was being bullied. I didn't want to sit at the front of the table. In the class, I always wanted to try and be at the back. I couldn't see what was going on, but I still didn't tell anyone. And then over a couple of years, my eyesight got even worse because I wasn't wearing the glasses that I was supposed to wear. And then I was forced to. And as I was forced to wear them, there was those bottle tops. And I've, n- I've always been, I've never been comfortable with how I looked. And because of the way I looked, because of how I dressed, because of my style, I was bullied as a kid. I was always part of the misfits. So you've got always your cool kids in school, and you see that through all American dramas and everywhere. But I was one of those guys that never fitted in anywhere, even with the misfits. There was something lacking. Um, so I was always one of those that my worth was attached to acceptance and belonging and what I could drive for others. What can I do for someone else? And it was that service. Yet today, service is one of my core values, and I do that because I get more from it than I think
Mm,
I may be doing for someone else. It
mm,
just serves me. Um, but yeah, it was at that point. It was like, how can I, for any form of belonging anywhere, to be invited to, say, a birthday party or just a camping trip, or they're going for a movie or anywhere? It's like, how can I fit in?
mm,
What can I do to please that person that they'll give me that invitation, or they will see me, or they'll think of me? And for that reason, it's always been. And I think I'm still in that loop of some sort where my self worth is so attached to how and even when I tell you about my favorite quote, it's about how am I making you feel,
mm,
right? And that's my life. It's always been, how can I make others feel? What can I do for them? How can I help them? I will go
mm,
out of my way. And services, like I said, it's um still my core value. But it's like don't know I don't know otherwise. And then earlier we were talking just yesterday. We're talking about what is this one self-belief that you hold true to yourself that is no longer serving you.
Mm.
And that's where I feel I've got to learn to put myself forward first. But after a long time, I feel like I want to be seen,
Mm.
but I want to be seen for who I am.
Mm.
I don't want to keep putting in constant work, and at times it feels like work. I'd go to events and make sure that I greeted everyone. Everyone knew who Cookie was. Um, I would have, I wouldn't have enough time to go into deep conversations. You saw me around everywhere. Yeah, everyone knew Cookie, but did anyone really know Cookie, or was it just, hey, yeah, I know that person, and that's Cookie there. And I kept floating around, serving everyone. And big events, I'd organize things, and it's like, what do you need? I'll make sure it's there for you. And all of that came from just wanting to be seen, wanting to be heard, wanting to belong. Um, and then it came to a point where when I removed myself from it, it was like conversations, phone calls, messaging, uh, out of sight, out of mind.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, wow, okay. But then I go back into that situation, and then it's still me again, all over again. It's like wanting to please, wanting to serve, um, wanting to. It's that belonging, that validation constantly.
Luke, I got that. Sorry, I'm getting you as you take a swig of your thing. I got that. I remember from you that it's like one of the most basic human needs. I've heard it before. Obviously, it's not like, but it was just the way you articulated it well, and you emphasized it. I think too was that be seen, heard, and
Yeah,
understood.
every human wants and has an innate desire to be seen, heard, and understood.
Yeah.
From the moment you're born.
Yeah.
It's like that's a basic human need.
Yeah.
That's what we need.
Mm.
It's a non-negotiable.
Yeah. I think the first time I found it was in my new marriage. For the first time, I met a person who's encouraging me to be me.
Mm. Mm. Okay, you're
Yeah.
skipping here. We need to spend some time on that
Sure.
because she's an incredible machine too. But
Yeah.
the just go back to that
Yeah.
what Lucas said, that so it was you saying you were bullied as a kid at home, family, was that like, were you seen, heard, understood? Was it something?
Family was, that's the other part where I think I'm so conflict averse as well.
Mhm.
Because home life was like fairy tale. It was, I never heard my parents arguing or fighting, not once. Everything was always happy. And that's the person who I've become. That's the kind of person who I've become. It's like, I'm always happy. Like, I don't keep things in my head necessarily, or at least I try and make myself believe that. But it was, my sister is 13 months older. And it was always like, make sure she's okay. Make sure she's all right. My parents, myself, and her. It was just a happy family growing up, beautiful memories. As a unit, we didn't grew up in a middle income, and life was good. Like, there was no materialism, but as we grew, mom and dad put in a lot of work, and we grew up with mom traveling around the world constantly, dad at work a lot, but they'll always be around. One of them was always around, never felt that void.
Mm.
But
Just quickly, mom
yeah.
mom was traveling. Why?
So from the age of 16, she was the breadwinner in her family, supporting all her siblings and her parents and all of that. So she used to take groups of people out on tours, and that's how she earned an income. She used to travel to India predominantly, but back in the day, and South Africa, and then America. She used to take tour groups, and she would leave them, and she'll take them. She'll organize everything for them back then. So it's like a mobile. It's like your travel agent travels with you to make sure that that entire experience
Okay.
is curated for you.
Amazing.
and she did that for a very long time. She's the first entrepreneur in my life that I came across. She used to hustle like she used to go to Pakistan or India for the weekend, buy a load of clothes, come back to Kenya, and she used to invite all the ladies to come home and buy these things. She used to hustle a lot. In fact, um, when they met, my mom and dad were engaged. He wanted to buy that business that afforded me my lifestyle and all of us as a family. What happened is he didn't have enough seed capital money to invest into that business. It was a partnership. And my mom is the one who gave him the seed capital for that. And he grew it to what it is, but to the business. But yeah, she's always been that person. She's got foresight. She was always about real estate. Like she would say, get into real estate, do this, do that, do this, do that. And culturally, being the lady in that household, and in not necessarily everything we thought, it wasn't that, oh, yes, you know about business. So I think dad was a little reserved he was always concentrating on building that business and wouldn't risk. Like mom was the serial entrepreneur. She would risk. She's got a bigger appetite. And had we, in hindsight now, and dad and I and everyone in the family agrees that if we listened to her more, we would have gotten here quicker, maybe, right? Because of her foresights into, hey, you should invest into this. Go and pick up this piece of land. Go and buy this house or whatever. We didn't at that point. And then eventually some of those things, she's like, no, I'm not listening to any of you guys. I'm doing it. And we can see the fruit of it now, like we can actualize those investments and all of that. But yeah, going back, it's just like it's been an incredible journey. No, at home there was no bullying. Everything was accorded. Again, we weren't spoiled. We didn't have much, but then we've seen mom and dad grow and build so much.
And your dad was an entrepreneur.
Yes.
And
So
sorry?
he actually went out to university. He was the only one in the family who actually got out. Got out to university. Him and I study at the same university, actually, funnily enough. Loughborough University. And I think difference of 20, 30 years in between us. And at one point we had the same tutor. Yeah. That was
The
ridiculous.
same subject.
Same subject. It was ergonomics.
Okay.
He did chemical engineering, but I did computing and management. And there was this module on ergonomics. And the same tutor happened to be there. But yeah, so sorry, I've lost
He
my
was your dad.
Yeah, so he was the first person to go out to university. He lived out there, actually did his diploma and then university and all of that out in England. And then when he came back, it was a case of, okay, I don't want to work for someone. I want to start my own. He looked around and he found this opportunity where someone was retiring. And then him and his cousin both went into that and said, okay, let's raise some capital. Let's buy this business. Let's see what there is. They couldn't afford to do so. And then all of a sudden, family members started coming together. But all the family members wanted equity. They didn't want to do any of the work, but they wanted equity. Dad went out to his brother and his cousins and all of that. They said, sure, we can give you money, but we want equity. Whereas dad was thinking they'll help him buy into the business. But anyway, and he didn't, and they said, yeah, we'll put up the money to buy the business, but you still got to come up with your own for your share. So it kind of didn't work out for the purpose that he wanted. Anyway, mom supported him, and they got into a year of this business, and building these brands, and they were getting frustrated, like it wasn't fulfilling them. So they put it out for sale again after a year. And all of a sudden, the number of people that applied, like they came forward and said, we want to buy that business. We go, like, oh, hold on. It seems like we've got something here. So they chucked all of that out, all the offers. And they're like, okay, let's concentrate on this business. And that's how they started, him and his cousin. And they started scaling. They were the only operational directors in the business. And they started building out this business. Eventually, they bought out all the other partners, which were also relatives. And yeah, for was the first 40-year stint that they built that business and grew it. And then it came to a point where they're like, okay, we've got enough money. And they had a business constitution where no family members were allowed to join the business.
Oh, really?
Because my dad's partner had 3 daughters and I was the only son. So if I came into that mix, it would be imbalanced, or so they felt.
Mm.
And so as a result, no family members were allowed to enter the business.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the foresight for them to have that constitution
Yeah.
back in the day as well, to protect shareholding and,
Yeah.
to avoid any conflict. And those are the times. So I said, fine. But anyway, so
So just on that,
Yeah,
just on
sure.
family business, we spoke about it yesterday too,
Yeah.
and in terms of diversity, and you're now heavily entrenched in EO, and we were saying 19,000, almost 20,000 members globally.
Yeah.
And what I've realized, yeah, and I have biases to as we do, but towards different entrepreneurs even, but which I feel they're incredible machines, definitely. But the family businesses, I've learned something recently from somebody
Mhm.
that they explained their position of coming into the family business. And I was just like, wow, that is so much pressure, man. Like, you can't fail now. The woman that I'm talking about,
Mhm.
she's taking over the reins, and it's been established now. The brand's worked. It's put her through school. It's been successful. Now she's coming in. She can't fail. Her father and mother
Mhm.
could have failed because it was their thing.
Yeah.
And now it's even more pressure actually to take on. And I never considered
Yeah.
that the pressure that applied in that family business. So interesting. And obviously it's relative, but I was just like, oh, wow. Okay, cool.
It's
That is a
more
lot.
loaded than that.
Yeah.
Because the generation that built those businesses, that's their why, that's their purpose. And when you take them away from that, or you fail at that, it's like they've failed it. Like when we speak about being attached to our businesses, they're so attached to the business because that was their way of life. Worked, defined what they did and who they were. That's, we still speak about it, your identity being attached to your business. But it was more so in that generation. But mine's a little different. So what happened actually is, as much as it was a family business, they scaled it and they're like, okay, so we're very comfortable now where we are in our lives and we don't want to keep putting in these hours. We want to pull back. So they put up the business for sale. And a venture capitalist came in, and this was Dubai based. And they bought into the business. They bought the business, the operational part. And we removed the brands out of the business. And both the partners then became consultants on the board. They took board seats, and the day-to-day operations and the other assets were sold to the venture capital out of Dubai. As soon as I found out, I applied for a position in the business because through university, on my breaks, I used to come back to Kenya to visit the family, to visit mom and dad. And I was always interested in this business because, you grow up listening to everything. And I'm like, now that I was educated and I'd seen the world and how, I was taught things on how to approach differently and try and apply some of that theory into practice. So whenever they'd sit there and their dad would be talking about all the issues they're having at work, and I'm like, but why don't you do this? Like, I had solutions. I'm not necessarily like proven solutions, but I'm like, but you could do this. I had ideas from all the things I was studying. And I'd go into the office at times and I'd be sharing these things. And what would happen is they always thought of me as a child. So they'd listen in and then, like, whatever, sure. And then they'd go out to consultant. That point was Grant Thornton, and they'll take advisory from them. And they'd come back with the same answers. And when they came back with the same answers, and mom was privy to these conversations. So mom's like, why do you do this? Like, next time they want to sit down and talk to you, you should charge them. Maybe then they'll implement some things. She was onto something then. But anyway, so they were doing this, and I was like, I know the opportunities, the potential in that business is incredible. But it's just that they'd been doing this for so long, and our times had changed, and they didn't have the same energy. So they wanted to pull back. I'm like, okay, I approached the venture capital, and I'm like, hey, listen, here's the thing. I've grown up with this business. I know it's no longer ours, but I've got connection, I've got insights into the history and on this business. And as much as my dad and them sit on the board, I also will be able to help influence decision making and operations and so on. So there was a job opening for operational director, or it was the operations manager at that point. So I applied for that. I went in for that was the second time I ever visited Dubai. So I went over for my interview. A couple of weeks later, he's like, "Okay, you got the job." That's when I told my dad that, hey, I applied for this role and I'm coming to Kenya to work for this business. He's like, "What?" Like, yeah, I'm coming to Kenya because at that point was I got to backtrack a little, and that's got to do with the first official business. So I did my undergrad, then I went out to I studied computing and management. The dot-com crash happened, and I couldn't find work. I was going into depression because sitting at home in London in that miserable weather and not having anything to do. With all this force, with all that aspirations that, hey, I've done a degree, I'm going to go out and I got to start making money now. I got to be self-sustaining. I couldn't find a job, and then in conversations and in a social environment, I found someone who was looking for an intern, unpaid job, and I'm like, listen, let me come work for you for free. I went in and it's just in a basement on Edgware Road in London. It was a consumer electronics business. And they'd been around for, I think, about 26 years or something of that sort. And they were into consumer electronics and white goods and wholesale and retail of gray imports and all of that. And I came in and I said, let me work with you, let me build an online business for you. Because that was my background then. And just then, the price comparison sites had just taken off. Price Runner, Kelku, and Deal Time, and all that. There was a big surge out there in the UK, and it gave me that opportunity to work with them and learn. And then all of a sudden, there was a huge boom in online. Within 2 or 3 years, we overtook the revenue for that 26-year-old business from something that we'd created. But then I was getting depressed in England with the weather and all that. 1988, Mom and Dad took us to the World Expo, or 89 in Australia. I was a kid. I remember these memories of just beaches with park benches, like infrastructure, playgrounds that you could, growing up in Kenya, generation Kenya, you don't get those public facilities. But then I went to this place and I'm like, wow, this is incredible. Beautiful roads and nice houses, and there's no security gates, there's no fencing. It's just like, it's a beautiful, beautiful place. Like, I want to come and live out here. And after I finished my higher education, it was a case of Dad's like, no, you got to get British. You got to get a British degree. It holds weight. You can't go to Australia for it. And he always guided me into where he thought was the best opportunity, or how I would succeed in life. And I leaned in and I said, okay, sure. And, I did that. But then when I was getting depressed after 2 years in London, I said, all right, here's my opportunity. At that point, I was dating someone, and, but all of a sudden, overnight, I put in an application to the Australian Embassy for a visa, a working visa. The next morning, I wake up, and it's there. That's how quick it was. And then I resigned and then I'm heading out. Everyone's like, what do you mean? Like, even till today, my dad and mom will always ask, when will you settle down? When will you settle down? Like, they're always worried. I'm like, what makes you say I'm not settled? But it's because I get it. Because for them, it's like being stuck in one place with some purpose that's grounding you. And I've never been that person. I'm moving around so much. And I just packed up and I left for Australia. I lived out there for 2 years.
Did you have a job lined up, or did
No. And that's the beauty about it. So um, I got there, and thankfully I have family there. A nephew who I'd grown up with, and you know, it's weird, a 1 year age difference between my nephew and I. And he'd moved out there and he'd settled, and I grew up with him. And he's like, come over and stay with us. I stayed with them for a few months, a good few months, and I went out looking for jobs. I think
this is Sydney? Huh?
this is in Sydney. The best lesson learned till today in my life in terms of skill set. The first job that I got was a door-to-door sales guy. And 40 degrees heat, I was there in summer. I remember I had to go out shopping and buy some suits, thinking that's the kind of sales gig I was getting into. So the training, went through training for a day. And the next day I was like, you come in. And then every day there's a new container or shipment that comes in from China. And these are containers that no one's claimed. So there's products in them, and these guys pitch to go and get those containers at undervalued prices. And whatever goods are in there, you take them, get a 15 to half an hour morning training as to what that is. There's no base salary. It's 100% commission. And you pick the products that you think you can commit to. And then you go out, you sell them, and you come back in the evening with the balance, and you get your commission based on whatever you sold. So I used to work in industrial estates, knocking on doors, and it was grafting, 40 degrees heat. Now that I bought the suits, that's what I was wearing. I used to carry 3 big bags, one rollie and 2 big bags, because I was ambitious. I'm like, I need to make money. And every day I'd go out and sell new things, but the training, it was like, okay, and the culture piece. And I still remember that because I implemented that in my businesses going forward. It's okay. So if you're in sales, okay, what are the features? How do you talk about these features? How do you approach rejection when your customer says no? How do you say, hey, just please give me a chance, to explain? But not only that, it's like, okay, let's do time blocks in the morning. This is where the high energy is. So how you working? But if you start getting rejections first thing in the morning, how does your mood and how do you show up psychologically for the rest of the day? Because you're going to deflate. So then when do you bring in your break? How do you take that break? And then what are you talking to yourself about? And how do you re-strategizing on the things that you'd said? Reflect on what are the angles and how you were selling, and now try a different approach. And then after that break, go in again. And then it's what feature are you selling to who? Trying to understand your customer. And this is like Rich Mulholland says, was around story selling versus storytelling. And now I reflect upon it. And that's exactly what I was doing at that point. It's like when you put out the product, it was secret. It was Santa Clauses doing that, dancing and wiggling to snowballs at Christmas. And it was various things. But it was like when you knock on that door, understand who's coming out. And you try and profile them as to who you think that is. And then show them the features and sell them the features based on their needs, right? As opposed to what you think, automatically what serves you, it's got to serve them. I was let loose. Dogs were let loose on me. I had Lebanese people running after me with literally matchets and things in the industrial estates. I had all sorts of rejections because these people were possibly having bad days, or the fact that they're tired of door-to-door sales guys trying to pitch to them and try and make money. But either way, I did really well
those
there.
worst experiences. I was going to ask best experience there.
Best experience is there's an elderly lady. She opened up and I was talking to her about, and what she said is, how long have you been doing this? And she meant during the day. I was like, and she was towards the end of the evening. She's like, you look tired, and can I offer you a glass of water? Or and she's like, before you say anything, can I offer you some water? And I'm like, wow, that's so nice of you. And I'm like, yes, please. I'd love a glass of water, and I'm truly grateful. And then she's like, put those bags down here, come in and, sit down and tell me. And she wanted to know more about me.
Mm.
And then she's like, okay, so now tell me about your products. So she put the person before everything. And I thought that was so powerful. Like she wanted to know who I was and my story and to what's brought me to her door. Shared that, and then when we're talking about these things, it's like, I'm sorry, but I have no need for these things. And I'm like, actually, you don't need to buy anything here. You've taught me something,
Mm.
and I'm walking away with something great.
Mm.
So I'm grateful to you. And that was the best experience, actually. But yeah, and the other thing was how they sold this. It was a commission only, but what they said is, listen, here's the thing. When you come back at the end of the day, we want you to leave your money with. I'm like, what? It's like, okay, let's unpack this. Do you have a dream? Why are you coming here to work? Like, well, I need the money. Like, what do you need money for? Like, well, I've got to pay rent, and do you have a dream? Is there something aspiring to do? I'm like, yeah, I want to buy a car. Like, okay, how much is that car? What car is it? How much does that cost? I'd seen a car that was on the ads, and I'm like, this is what it costs. This is how much it is. Okay. So how much would you need to break that down and save to buy? I'm like, I haven't thought about it. It's like, okay, let's sit down. Let's talk about it. Let's, like, if we break it down on a monthly and then to a weekly, how much money would you have to put aside to be able to afford that? We do the calculations with them. I'm like, okay, so if you save and leave this much behind with us, we will top it up with the same amount. I'm like, what? It's like, yeah. If you're coming here to do something, we want to be invested in. We want to invest in your dream. So if you're willing and if you've got that discipline, and we're going to teach you how to save money to get to that goal. I'm like, wow, that's powerful. That's incredibly powerful. So if you put this aside, we will match the same amount. And 2 months in, I managed to buy that car. I bought the car and I resigned because someone had seen me through that sales process at Vodafone, and they said, we want you to come and work for us. And then I was selling mobile phones in a retail at Centerpoint tourist area. And from there, Vodafone marketing, the marketing arm, asked for me to join them, and they would pay for my 2-year visa to stay on. But it was just those lessons I've never forgotten, and I try to implement those. And it's funny, like we talk about these now today as well. And I'm like, I did that. I wasn't conscious about it then, or I didn't realize it or actualize it. Well, I didn't put it down to, oh, this is such clear structure and blah, blah, blah. It was just one of those things you did, and I was taught it. And now when I reflect on all these wise people on podcasts and on YouTube and all these speakers, when they come up on stage and they're telling me about it, I'm like, yeah, I've done this, yeah. And I'm like, okay, I need to really think about it more carefully.
It's something to think about just for people listening and watching, is just coming out, and for you, if you're coming out of school or studying, but then also if your family members are or anything like that. I think the first things you study or experience, like an internship, or I remember I've still got the certificate. I did a bartender's course straight
Yeah.
out of school, and they taught you how to make cocktails and stuff. And I got life lessons that I learned from that course, like just stuff how to serve people,
Yeah.
and that I still utilize today. That just to be very intentional, I guess, would be my taking out of what you said, yeah, about the experiences you involve yourself in once you've done all this work, because you've been working
Yeah.
and you've transitioned to another, and you were studying, and then so you've done a lot of work already, but then something else that like that bartending training, I studied for 12 years of schooling. And then there's like a 2-day bartending course that I'm still executing on. Like, it's weird. But I think it's because you cracked open in a way, and you've also built all the foundations. And like, so you've done a degree now, and then you go into e-commerce, and then you go to Australia, and then so you it's obviously the type of person, and there's all that you have to be ready when the students are ready. The teacher will appear. I think it's the first quote
Yeah.
we used in our first podcast. And then something else you said, and I think we might have said this was going to be the last time we'll use this quote in a podcast recently. To Kierkegaard, I think it's Kierkegaard, but just to make sure that everyone knows that I'm not trying to be super intelligent or anything like that, because I'll fail there very quickly. I got it from the Avengers movie, so it's okay. It was life only makes sense in reverse, but we must live it forward.
Yes.
And it's something you made me think of right there. It's interesting to go back and look. That's how the lifeline, that EO lifeline exercise is just so valuable. Because you go, wow, okay, it just makes so much sense. And the universe gives you what you need, not what you want. Universal God or what you
Absolutely.
think. So that's my quote on quotes for right now. But but like, I'm seeing that, and it might have given you way earlier, and you realize it when like a Rich Mahalander, someone incredible comes in and points it out, and you're, oh, I already knew that, and I was already executing on that, but now I get to articulate it better.
Yeah. I've seen that over and over again, actually, in my life. And I'll come to the other part that's just happened recently in the new phase of my life, but I'll talk about that a little later. But unfortunately, a cousin who I consider as my brother passed away whilst I was in Australia. And I got the news, over a phone call as I was sitting around. I was on the beach, Bondi Beach, the famous Bondi Beach, drinking a beer and having a barbecue, doing the whole Australian thing, living the life. And I realized there was nothing I could do to say goodbye to him. And I was too far away from family at that point, the flights. I couldn't make it in time for his funeral. And my parents had always said, you were really far out when and I didn't understand that at that point, before when they were saying it. And this really knocked it home. Like, yeah, I'm removed from my loved ones, my family. Like, if that happened and I couldn't do that to my parents or my sibling, like, I would be broken. And that's when I decided that it's time to head back to London. When I went back to London, the old job was waiting for me, but now as a business development manager with this company. Gillette had opened up as well, where I'd done. So I did an internship during my degree with Gillette in Reading. So I used to wake up. I lived in London. I did a computing and management course, but there's a diploma in between on the third year. So the third year, I used to work with Gillette in Reading, which was there. It used to be called GATSI UK, which was Gillette Advanced Training Center UK. And I was building out intranets for their internal teams. And I'd done the diploma, and then when I finished my when I came back from Australia, I put out a feeler saying, "Hey, do you guys need some assistance, or is there jobs going?" Things. And this was in Reading, so I used to wake up in that year. I used to live in London because I wanted to be close to family. My sister was there, so I'd jump into the car at about 4:30 in the morning every day, just to battle the traffic and the journey to get into work for about 7 in the morning, and then I did that, and then I'd drive back in the evening. I'd leave at about 4:30 to be home for about 6:37, and that was a year where the only time I saw sunlight was on the weekends. And then I said, okay, I'm done with this. I can't do this. I went, and then I said, okay, so I've done computing and management. I've done sales, genuine, real sales, door-to-door sales and all of that. I went and started ACCA, so accounting.
Okay.
And as I started ACCA, I joined a recruitment firm called Odgers Ray and Bernstein out in the city in London. So I was working full time, and in the evenings I was studying so that I could level up and earn some more money. And at that point, my ex-wife, was an optician, and she was earning good salary. She was a locuming, and she had a passion for tea, and then we were exploring. I was working and studying at the same time, and then what I noticed is the suppliers that used to bring in the coffees and teas into this, and the amount of tea and coffee we used to consume in this building. I'm like, oh wow, okay. And then at the same time, the Australian nephew I spoke about had a tea business in Australia. I'm like, okay, there's an opportunity here. So we started importing. I started a part-time. That was the first job, formal business that we started in London. It was called Tiny Teas. It was premium loose leaf specialty teas. At one point, we had 180 different types of teas. Had to educate ourselves around it and all
Did
that.
you drink tea?
I've been a coffee person.
Yeah.
Always been a coffee person.
Okay.
But my ex-wife was into tea, and
Okay.
but not into that kind of tea. But we thought it was an opportunity. So I pretty much did all my examinations for ACCA till I had one left. I've got my final paper left. I was doing accounting at a recruitment headhunting firm, so I was understanding what that process looked like, recruitment and HR in a way. And then on the weekends and evenings, a little bit of extra time, was building this company, selling loose leaf teas. And then we got a little bit of traction, and there was a point of, again, this me being unsettled 2 years into this job, and I was not getting anywhere. There was no room for promotion. I'm like, do I really want this ACCA? And there's this gentleman who is in Dragon's Den in London, in the UK, called James Caan.
Mm.
And I remember this one thing very clearly. He's like, if you ever have a safety net in life, you will never live up to your potential. Because you will always be looking at a fallback. Whenever you're thinking of a fallback, you're never 100% in. Because you always know that you're safe. At that point, I said, I'm not sitting my last exam on an ACCA, and I quit my job. I said, I'm going to go into this full time, knowing that I was going to live off my ex-wife's income. Big ego, a punch to the ego, like all of a sudden, I'm no longer the breadwinner in the family. I'm like, I'm okay with that. It's temporary. But what that meant was I had no safety net. And so we started building out this business, weekends, full, like full time. I started supplying that old company that I used to work with. And that was from coffees and teas. And then we started building out. We went back to Kenya and worked with the Kawangware Street Children Foundation, because we always knew we wanted to give back to the community. So all the packaging was handmade. Some may consider it child labor, but actually we were supporting. So they used to recycle this street foundation. They used to make these paper bags and things. So we're like, if you're making these paper bags, could you make these bags for us, the packaging for our tea? And then for every X percentage of everything that we make will come back to support this foundation. So they're like, that's incredible. This is the first time someone's approached us for something like that. I'm like, of course. And then we worked that, and eventually we scaled the business. We were just about to get listed on Selfridges. We got the contract to stop putting our products out there. Ben Hugo cafes as well. We were supplying to wholesale to many tea houses and all of that. But there's almost like a cartel that controls. Like if you want to expand any further than that in that environment around tea in the UK, there's a body that kind of looks after who can do what.
Mhm.
And it needed a big injection, a financial injection for us to scale further. So at that point, we put it up for sale because this opportunity in Kenya had come up. So I'm like, hold on. Let's see. If I put this much effort and money into the tea business, or do I go back? And I know the opportunity there and the potential of scaling there. Which one of the two? And so I figured that I wanted to jump ship and try and build a bigger business out there. The potential was so much larger. And so we managed to sell this. That was my first ever exit in a business. So we managed to sell that tea business at a profit. And then I moved to Kenya. And January 8th, 2018, I think, yeah. And January 9th, I was at work. And I went into work every day for the next year, 9 months. 9 months. All I took with me from England was 2 black suits, 3 white shirts, and 2 black ties. It was intentional in a way that I'm going into a management role, so I gotta play the part. I gotta wear a suit, but I want it to be so monotonous. You know, that conversation we had. I didn't want to think about what I was gonna wear. I didn't want anything branded. I didn't want it to shout out who I am or who I'm not. Right? It was just like I'll leave everything to the people to decide. But this is, you know, just to go in early mornings because of the traffic and all of that in Kenya is ridiculous. In the industrial area to where I was staying with my parents at that point for the first few months. And then I went in and...
Still married.
Still married. Ex-wife was still in England because I said, let me go in and settle in before you move back. And she's got a good income and she wasn't used to that Nairobi lifestyle or anything. So I said, let me go and settle in and figure this out before you come through. And fast forward 9 months. So I actually forget fast forward. So I was recruited as operations head. And when I got there, obviously to the surprise of my dad's business partner, he didn't like the fact that that's the position. He was on the board position, but he didn't like the fact that I'd kind of snaked my way in and I'd come in at a senior level in a way.
Is your uncle?
Yeah.
And snaked your way in?
Because I didn't approach my mom and my dad and him on.
Because he didn't like that he wasn't involved in that. Okay.
Yeah, because I went through the venture capital company to come into the business.
Yeah. Well, that would be I think just the way you labeled that. Just I'm aware of that. Snaked my way in. It's like seems like
according to them
is snaked your way in. Probably most people would be like nepotism would be snaking your way in. So going to your uncle or your father and saying it would be the way in.
Yeah.
According to them, he
he
would have preferred it. You did do that.
That I got approval from them.
Okay.
But there was already they'd already designed the system where I wasn't allowed to be part of the business, right? To begin with.
Okay, so there you go.
So what happened is they designed that I wouldn't be able to join that organization. But then I found another way.
A loophole. Yeah.
I found another way to get in. And so I was demoted to the sales. I was demoted as a sales manager. Okay. I don't mind as long as I'm into the business. That was my first step. So I worked with sales, which was incredible. Funnily enough, 40 years of them running the business, they'd never engaged. They themselves were so operational in the business, they were unable to leave the factory or their offices. They never visited any of their clients or their customers. I got to travel around the country. Rough and tough a little bit, but I went around, understood the market, spoke to the customers,
by dogs and people.
all sorts.
No,
No.
You already had that in Australia.
Exactly.
So
it was. This was a beautiful chance for me to explore more. I grew up in Nairobi, but I didn't get to see the rural parts of the country. So I went around Bar Road, staying not in the nicest hotels or not getting the nicest meals or anything of that sort, but it's a great experience nonetheless. And it was I did that and got to know the clients. Clients got to know me. All of a sudden, they were relating the company and the brand with me. And I was building brand Kuki at that point because I knew the risk of I already been demoted. If they kick me out somehow, then I've got to start building a business. So I was building brand Kuki at that point. And as I'd go around, I'd understood all the nuances, and I was building relationships with these. And bottom line, so I've grown up as a Gujarati. Gujarati is from the Hindu and Jain. So I'm born. My dad's a Jain, so there's a religion called Jainism. Mom's a Hindu, so and obviously now married into Islam. All sorts, and we'll talk about my journey on that. But I grew up speaking my mother tongue is Gujarati, and for so long I always thought I used to think in Gujarati, so English is the second language. But I'd lost that because I went to a British schooling system, and then I'd been in England for 14 years, a couple of years in Australia, all of that. But when I came back, I understood the power of the language, Gujarati, because so much of that business, the business environment, was all conducted in Gujarati. And all of a sudden, I found myself speaking so much more, and I understood the power of that language as a tool, which I'd always frowned upon for so long because I got bullied back in the day.
Is it an official language in Kenya?
No,
No, it's still not.
It's
right?
Kenya. In Kenya, it's English and Swahili.
Okay. And we have like 11, 12, I think.
Yeah.
I lose count sometimes, but it's
12.
12 languages.
think it's 12.
San, yeah.
And Swahili is something that I was never taught in school.
Yeah.
And I've always just grown up, and I learned it because of my interactions with the locals. It's embarrassing to say that so many people that live there still don't speak the language. As in, they've been there for years, decades, and still don't understand or nor are able to speak the language. I was fortunate enough to interact with so many people along in this journey that I learned the language. But yeah, it was between Swahili, which I talked to the driver that was taking me around everywhere to get insights in, and to the end consumers. And I'd be able to converse with them because it was either English or Swahili, and I spoke both. That happened. I was working with them in sales, and then they shifted me, and I started moving different departments. So I was looking after marketing, and then I understood what merchandising meant, or merchandisers and merchandising. I built out a sales team. I started to understand marketing and which parts of marketing, because we, sitting in the office, you're always thinking, oh yeah, let's put it on TV and radio. Okay. We did TV and radio, but then I'm like, hey, listen, on the ground, there's these new things coming out where it's called wall branding. And it's not about just billboards. In Nairobi city center or some of the cosmopolitan areas, we might put up billboards. But in rural areas, most people walking, or even those that are in public transport, don't have the luxury of looking around and looking up and things. It's ground level marketing. And what that was, informal settlements and things like that. Informal townships, and where you painted the walls with your brand. And I'm like, okay, this is the way to go. And I saw some of the competitors starting to do it, and I'm like, let's get onto it quicker than that. And so we spent a whole load of money kind of going out and painting so many towns with our brands. And going back to one of the things from this ad that I'd seen that
I was going to ask, can we talk about that now?
Yeah.
And we'll have the link to it, guys.
Yeah. So the ad was, it was a birthday, and it was grandparents, parents, and the kids.
Yeah.
And it was unpacking the gifts, and it's around Valon inside. And it was a gift of generations. And I was like, everyone knew that, and it was year on year would build on that advert. And then what I realized is, and not necessarily Unilever were probably not doing that as well. And that's when I realized we're never marketing to the adults that we see who are picking up these. We're starting to market generations below. So as they grow up, they know the brand.
Mm.
And they're growing up with that brand. So it's the kids in school.
Mhm.
And that's who we started marketing. So our ads changed. We're always about gifting. We're always talking about them. We're always celebrating them. Back to school and all of that. It was outside of schools that we were branding
Mm.
our petroleum jellies. We'd make calendars to go out to them. We'd give diaries and caps and umbrellas and things that were more useful for the locals, the end consumer. But it was always marketing to the. We always thought the decision maker initially was the person who was paying for it. It was.
Mm.
They eventually came to, because they'd known this brand for so many years,
Mm.
is that automatically that's what they pick up. So we started nostalgic branding and always kept bringing them back to their childhood
So it's
and
interesting.
conditioning. Yeah.
Yeah, so very interesting if everyone that's listening or watching is that very popular Vaseline ad that's out right now. That it seems like this could have been inspiration for that. So we'll definitely have the link on it because
Yeah.
it's that. Yeah, but yeah, and I love that. So in digital marketing, we often talk about attribution, and I haven't. So where the last click or how much um how much budget you spend to the awareness. Social media is often used for awareness,
Mm-hmm.
so we show people shiny things in social media and that, and then it creates. So the social media example I use is manufacturer's intent. So
Mm-hmm.
you didn't know that thing existed. Now you saw it in social feed, and now you
Yeah.
know it exists. You can't get it out of your head. Uh, um, and then search engine marketing, they facilitate intent.
Yeah.
And now you have the intent, you want that shiny object, you go search for it.
Yeah.
And the answer engines now, the AI or the other one, yeah, the generative engines, you generate and you using intent and stuff like that. But that's the attribution. It's interesting to also consider the decision making attribution. So that part of the mix as well.
Yeah.
So that's why often the case, and there's a famous quote is like, we know advertising works 50% of the time. We just don't know which 50%. And digital is way better,
Yeah.
but it's still just that psychological. Now you're
Yeah.
talking about how much do you attribute to the different markets?
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah. It's been an incredible journey on the ground, to be honest. And then I was sitting in the production area. But then 9 months in, what happened is the venture capital had brought in a CEO from India to take over to run this business. And he was so culturally unaware on the lay of the land and wasn't able to relate in terms of operations and execution. So the value of a business was already eroding away. And at that point, I spoke to my father and I'm like, listen, I can do this. Like, I can't afford to buy this business, but I have an X amount that I can put into it and I'll take that equity and you pay and take over the other equity. And let's do this together. I'm ever so grateful that, he agreed to it. And initially when I joined, he's like, no, just calm your horses. You can't do this. You're still new. But anyway, so him and I bought back the business at a discounted rate than what it was sold at for the first time. And I obviously needed him. We made him the chairman of the business because I needed his counsel. But not only that, I wanted him to, there's purpose. And every day he'd go to an office or the factory. That was his way of life for 40, 50 years. Every morning, wake up, got to go to work. Evening, come back. Weekend, recently, I was like, okay, we'll go and play golf. But for so long, that's his identity. And when I talk about the second exit, my biggest challenge there was, will I be the reason that puts my dad into his grave.
Uh,
Yeah, that purpose, it was like, because it's happened before, right? For so many, that when you lose purpose, when you lose
yeah.
everything, it's heart attack or something, it manifested in a way. My grandfather passed away at the age of 60 something, when he'd been working, he was mobile, he was doing everything on his own. Till it came to a point where I think he just felt like there was no purpose in life,
Mm,
and he passed
mm,
on because of for a heart attack.
sorry. I
And
mean, my
uh,
my dad retired, and very shortly after that,
yeah,
a few years
yeah,
done. So I know of this of myself. I'll never stop working. I'll say this now. So again, in back one day, but like I can't stop working because I'm worried about things, a lot of things.
and that's so I've come to think of it differently now. That I'm gonna make sure that work's not the only thing that my identity is related
Mm,
to.
mm,
I gotta find other things. So even when I do stop working, uh, and that I have other things that keep me going. EO being one of them,
mm,
right? And that was a big part of EO filled my life. It fills that void of keeping me intellectually challenged. It builds on my leadership.
mm,
It keeps me engaged within a community of like-minded people.
mm,
It fills so many of those buckets, right? And it's a place of belonging, and validation for to actually quite an extent.
mm.
And so that was a fill. That was
And that
so
was a qualifying business. Was the one
that
that
was
you
a
went?
qualifying business.
Yeah.
That was a YPO qualifying business. By the time we built it, so when I took over, the business, we had a lot of change in management as well. We had no expats working for us at that point. Like we didn't want expats. Change the culture of the business. And at that point, when we took over, I told my dad, okay, so 5 years and let's make this happen. He's like, what do you mean make this happen? I'm like, let's scale this. And I came to Kenya for financial independence, financial freedom, and that was the sole intent, to build out a business and be comfortable and then do whatever I wanted. Like I wasn't restricted by money, and that wasn't the drive or
Mm,
purpose of life. 5 years, 5 months in, we actually did that exit, um, which is incredible. Like I'm still proud of that.
mm,
But in that journey, we started scaling, and my dad's like, "Listen, here are the keys to the business. This is the rest of your life. This is what you're going to do for the rest of your life. So, and this is the last thing. Uh, I've provided everything that I believe I can and I should for you to carry on life." I'm like, yeah, more so. Since the day I graduated from university, I've never taken money uh, from my parents to live a life, gifts and things of that sort, of course, but never to
mm,
sustain a life or to live my life. Um, but and that was an ego play as well, right? That's like I gotta be a man and I gotta do these
mm,
things, and but I like that. I
mm,
like that. I challenge myself, and that's probably where ego positively impacted my life,
mm.
right?
Well, it fits in with the EO as well. Do
Yeah,
hard things.
yeah. Do
It
I
seems
think
like
so?
it's built in before
Absolutely.
you joined
Yeah,
that. You already had it.
yeah. And then we scaled that business, and I learned so much from it. From as I was working in the production side of things, we and the best part about this was I started with the end in mind. So what I said was, I want, I need this much in my life. I need this much money for my life that I envision going forward. When I retire, this is how much income I'm going to need on an annual basis. And then if I work it out as if that's the interest I'm getting, then how much do I need as the deposit, as the fixed deposit that goes in? Okay, if that's the amount, then how do I work backwards that's the valuation of the business, but 25% of it, because that's the equity I held.
Mm,
So if 25% needs to be worth that, then what's the 100%? And if that's 100% that I need that the business to be worth, then now let's work out whether if I'm going to sell on EBITDA, or I'm looking at what we ended up doing was selling on turnover. on the sales figure, which is unheard of in Kenya, and for it to have happened. But anyway, so
There's a timing thing there too, because that doesn't.
I think more so from negotiations, the brand equity and the
Yeah.
market share and the business that we'd built, and the desperation or the lack of alternatives in the market as well, and then also the desperation of market entry for the multinational that was coming into play, and then we were still a small ticket size for them, for instance, in the grand scheme of things. So when I figured out that value, I'm like, okay, for it to be worth that much, now, okay, let's break it down to 5 years. If I break it down to 5 years, this is the annual goal that we need to get to. Okay, if that's the annual goal, then what do I need to break it down into monthly? And we started tracking that. And it was so easy. And that's what we do today. The LTPs that we're doing, a 3-year visioning exercise. Now let's break that down into an annual, and then we're doing a 6-month. But we're breaking down those into quarterly goals. And now let's hold everyone accountable for the monthly, and then, reporting on a weekly basis. And it becomes so much easier and bite-sized to focus and then to catch when we're losing traction, and to celebrate when we're gaining momentum, right? But either way, as we keep tracking, and this is it, that journey of scaling to exit. It's funny how we concentrated on people and culture to begin with in the business, and Dad had already done an incredible job because he's just that person. Employees knew him. He knew every employee on the factory floor and all of that, and so I got to know everyone as well. We scaled up, so we leveraged and bought a bigger property because we knew what the end goal was. And now we bought a factory that was over capacity. We need a lot more. We could build out a lot more capacity than we had, or what we were doing at that point. Exactly. And with that, I went and studied Kaizen. It's the Toyota way. So I went to Pune, the Kaizen Institute of Management, and the course there around how do I on lean management and lean production. So we designed the entire factory floor and the entire production around that, and not just the production, but everything from inflow to outflow. The whole flow of the factory was designed based on that. So that was an incredible learning, and the opportunity to be able to put that into practice. And step after step, we started scaling. So we built out on the people and culture, the marketing and the sales, and then financials never been my strong suit. So then we started bringing in consultants to help us through certain things, and the power of one. At that point was a fellow EO member who was great at that, who was doing that, and like, I need you to come in, building our dashboard so that we're working on our business, not in our business. And I wanted to start removing myself slowly and building out and making sure that it was staff-led, staff-managed, and they had ownership, and and I could be anywhere in the world and I could look at it, because what that allowed it to be is that I could be removed. Now when the new acquirers came in and bought over the business, it was already self-sustaining, right? Because the whole team would come with it. They didn't need me to be. They shouldn't have to lock me into a contract. But as we were building it out as well, my second trip to Dubai was because, as we were talking about the exit and was getting closer to the exit, I wanted to build out the same units in Dubai to export to Africa so that there was no double taxation. Because if I was in Kenya and I wanted to send something to Uganda, I'd pay Kenyan taxes on it. And then for it to go across the border, they'd be taxed in Uganda. They'd be taxed in Tanzania. They'd be taxed in Congo. They'd be taxed everywhere in Africa. So I thought, at that point, everyone's talking about Dubai and the free zones out there. So I'd gone out there to do a recce on setting up a plant. And I fell in love with Dubai. It's like, oh, this is, again, just like Australia. Same thing. It's like, this is futuristic city, you look at the infrastructure, all of that. It works. It was so easy to get something set up. But what happened is just as we were working that out, the buyers started coming in. The flow started coming in, and we were intentional about it. But then it happened a little sooner. And then 5 months, we managed to close in on the deal. And we were very conscious that we did not want to, we didn't want to be minority stakeholders, but also we didn't want to sell to a PE. We wanted to sell to a strategic partner. So, because they would understand the value of the business, and they would build onto the legacy, right, of the brands and the company, and look after the people. Whereas private equity is very transactional. So we were looking for a strategic partnership, and this multinational came in, but then we were clear to identify that if we went into, and we were very intentional in the negotiations around minority protection and that, but also that they couldn't start inflating the costs and the balance sheets and the P&L, where they start diluting our shareholding, and that we wouldn't have, because when you come in with a big multinational, comes their mindset as well, and the number of employees that they want to put into each department and so on. We were running a very lean and a net profit business. So we were conscious that if we're still locked into this, there could be some potholes and along the way, and we wanted to protect against that. So we negotiated.
How did you know to do that? That is very interesting, because I think this is a learning for everyone that wants to scale and sell.
Yeah,
That planning that you talked of is just incredible. What you talked about, that 5 year,
yeah,
and how you did, and you broke it down.
yeah.
I didn't even thought. I was so like that. That was so interesting to me. So then to know, okay, cool. I'm gonna keep an equity stake. I think you said 25. I don't know
Yeah.
if that's still um the case, or that was the final thing. But
Yeah.
then just on, you can confirm that now. But
Sure.
the who did that due diligence of keeping them honest, and knowing that you still invest. It's
Yeah.
good for them that you still invested. You still got equity, I think.
Well, the whole point was us having skin in the game, because we believe that we had partnered up with the right team. They came with deep pockets. We've already got market share. We've already built this product, right? And all it needs is finance to kind of deep pockets to compete with the Unilevers, or to continue to beat them at this game, or and take it further and scale it. So the export markets was the market was huge. So the product development, there was a flow of new products. There was a whole pipeline of products that we could introduce into the market. The sales team and all of that to beef up that machinery. We figured these guys are going to come in, leverage on what we're doing, and they had the skill set. You can see them operating in different parts of the world with exactly that. They were a great fit. When the founder came in, incredibly humble person, and we bought into him and his team. We sold not to the company, but to the people we were going to work with. Right? That changed very quickly. As the transaction went through, he retired. And as he retired, a lot of his team moved out, and there was an entire new culture within the organization that rose up, and we weren't necessarily aligned. But in our hopes, what we said is there's a risk that this isn't going to work out when we were negotiating. But there's also, we were optimistic that this is going to blow up and be incredibly successful. And that's the intention we went in with. So what we said is, yes, we're going to sell you the 75%, because that got us to where we wanted to be. But that 25% was a pull option that we could either stay on, or we could exit that, depending on how it went. And that was 2 years into. And funnily enough, it was already we negotiated a minimum valuation on that. And this COVID happened in between. And so luckily we came out well because we had already sold just prior to COVID and all of this.
Mm.
But we were hopeful that that valuation and that we'd have skin in the game, and this would get a lot more than what we settled for. And you know, greed, yes, but it wasn't just necessarily greed. It was optimism that yes, we found the right partners to scale this business. And there's so much potential in this business with the resources they came in with, or resources that I had access to. They already had presence in the neighboring markets and things like that. So we just thought these were easy wins. Unfortunately, the culture and the people and their lack of localization led to this business failing. But yeah, we managed to exit at an incredible time, because funnily enough, straight after our exit, the formal retail market within Kenya. So we had big chains that were like the Nakumats, Uchumi, Tuskies. These are big brands. They're like, that gave entry to Carrefour now or back then, like your Pick and Pays and your Checkers and that. These are brands as massive as those across the country. And they all started going into administration, and they all disappeared.
Mm.
So the sales just dropped considerably. Carrefour came into the market, and now it's about starting again, about building relationships and getting your products in and so on. But we actually exited at the peak of the market. And in hindsight, obviously, grateful. But it took a while. It took about 2 or 3 years for my dad to actually come to that realization. And he constantly got congratulated, and he was a person of envy because everyone was envious of him in the community that he hung around with, to say, "Oh my God, like you guys, you've done the best thing ever." But when we were exiting, he was, it's like it's a child he's given away, because he's been with that child for so long and he's like, "But what are you going to do? Like, what does that mean for you? Like, when are you going to settle down?" Like, again, the same questions. And on my side, it was a fear of, oh no, we gotta quickly find some solution to this. I'm exiting, and what I did was, and when they say once you exit a business, hold back before you jump into something new. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, sure. And my calling was, I need to keep Dad busy. He needs an office. He needs an office to come to. He needs something to do, and not necessarily engage in business, but he needs a place to go to. He needs that routine, because the worst thing that can happen is that if he loses that, what are the consequences of that? And so I jumped into another business very quickly and into a partnership. So we were exiting here and already had something ready to walk into. Went into a security AI camera business. It's called Natatmo. Partnered up with another expat and got an office, got Dad an office, myself an office. Like, did it up nicely just so that he feels like, and it was closer to home in a nice area. This is all vanity now, right? Because all of a sudden you've just come out feeling successful, you've done all of these things, and you're like, okay, now I'm flush with cash in a way, right? From something I didn't necessarily have before. And then jump into a business because it's only this much investment, because it's a startup. I come about running a mammoth of a business. Value for money is so different, right? It's like, okay, this is petty change in a way, like it's idiotic, absolutely, right? But it's startup. Okay, I can afford to put this in. Put this in, and the business sale crashes for reasons. We're ahead of the time, AI and facial recognition, but also didn't think this through in the rush. They built AI in France for local in France in terms of looks.
The models are not trained for African,
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
people of
Bring
color.
it back to Kenya, and it doesn't work
Mm.
so well. We don't have the support of the teams in France. They've
There's
just
a good movie on this actually that I've talked. I don't know if I've talked about it before, but I don't know if you've seen it. Netflix actually have this
Mhm.
the movie documentary called Code Bias
okay.
or Coded Bias, something like that.
Oh.
But on even the state of affairs that we find ourselves in now is something to be very aware of,
Yeah.
especially as Africans.
Yeah.
That the language you spoke of, most of the language on the internet is actually English.
Yeah.
And there's some things that you would understand this better than I would actually, because I'm native first language English and very poor at everything else. But some things don't translate to language at all,
Yeah.
and some things don't translate across languages.
Absolutely.
And so the large language models are language, and that's something. So things will be lost.
Yeah.
But yes,
Yeah. Exactly.
yeah. So ahead of your time, and it sounds like an unknown sort of thing, situation. Yeah.
Ambitious. The reasoning was not right to get into the business itself. The due diligence was incorrect. The timelines were incorrect because it was just rushing to solve for something else. And then invested money, and all logic at that point. It was all completely emotionally driven. All decisions were emotionally driven because I was trying to solve for greater consent.
You were worried about your dad?
Yes.
Okay.
At one point, and it was a case of, okay, we need to go and do something, and this conversation constantly about, what are you going to do next? What are you going to do next? Oh, I've got something, right? Anyway, what happened there was we had a contract for this product with a security company, and they gave us an order. We had everything in place. We bring the products in. As they're in transit over to us, the company is taken over by a multinational as well, the security company, and they do not they don't honor the sales order. I'm stuck with all this stock, and there's no other marketplace for this. Till date, it's sitting out in Kenya in a warehouse that I've given out to another upcoming business that do with it what you please, and you can keep it. If it helps you, and you can build a business around this, then it's all yours. Because I moved away from it, and it was a great lesson learned, expensive one. But when so many people are telling you something, and these are words of wisdom because they've walked that journey, don't discount it. Don't think you're special. Don't discount it too easily. There is some value in it. So
I've had someone nearly on the. You remind me of a few guests we had, but nearly on the podcast previously, and I love this. But some lessons you don't have to learn, like other people have done it already. Just listen.
Yeah.
But as entrepreneurs, it is
different.
often difficult for us. I think it's the should. As soon as someone tells you what you should do,
Yeah.
And I had this with Mark Stockley recently as well. He said, we don't. Someone suggested he should go to this holiday, and he's like, well, no, I don't want to go. But the thing about you said is your awareness, and the quote I was talking about was from Malcolm Gladwell. Again, he said it probably wasn't his, but he said it was pay attention to your attention. I loved it, and it was like it's awareness thing.
Yeah.
But then don't get caught just looping on it, but just be aware and figure out that one word that we do in EO. That's, to me, is an EO. That's an attention thing. So where am I? What state am I in? Do I want to be there?
Yeah.
Or do I want to move to another state? So
Yeah.
a lot of the time for me it's anxiety, and then I can decide. Now I'm aware of it. Pay attention to my attention.
Yeah, that's
Cool.
powerful.
Next.
Yeah.
Next. So let's go. So now like we're getting closer to where we are now, hey? And then Dubai and meeting your wife.
So remember, I said the second trip to Dubai was for the recce of expansion of the business. When we exited the business, one of the clauses, the NDAs, was non-compete. For the next 6 years, we're not allowed to do the same products in any market. And that was something I was willing to accept. So when we signed on that, there's no way that I could. The reasoning for Dubai dropped off. Like I couldn't go out and set up the same plant out there. But I really, really loved and wanted to get out to Dubai. And then moving forward, I was fortunate enough to find love second time around. And I met a person that allowed me to be me. And also the fact that we were both in this stage of life where we were mature. You know, when you get married the first time around, it's all love. And you never know what you're walking into. Like, it's all rainbows. That's incredible. But then when you go into your second relationship, that I found is you're so much more aware of what you want and what you don't want. And when we walked into that relationship, it was with cards open. Like, I've been through this journey. This says me, this doesn't. And when it just feels like so liberating. The expectations are dropped, reality, we're all on the same page. And like, this works for me, this works for me, this is what I'm looking for. And we're a lot more clearer in which way we want to go and what does that look like. And we align so well. And like I said earlier, the first time in my life where, of course, other than your parents, this person who saw me for who I am, but actually more so than that, she's pushing me to be more of myself and better myself for me. And that's an unknown concept in my life, right? Parents do that, and that's almost like a given. But actually going back to that, funnily enough, after the Regional Leadership Academy I did in Cape Town, I had an epiphany and from that learnings, and I actually went back and spoke to my parents about how grateful I am for where I am in my life and how I've turned out to be. But at the same time, I said, there are certain things that you said and you did, and that if you'd frame those a little bit differently, because I carried that, all my life I've been looking for your validation. And yet, even till today, you've not mentioned, like, this is what it looks like, right? Just that if you just said you're proud of me and that I'm enough, then I'm okay. And what he said is that, every time I tell you that you're, he's like, look, culturally, I don't understand. I think that, I don't say it. But when I tell you that, no, you can do this, but you can do more than this, it's because the belief I have in you and I know your potential. And I'm so proud, and I'm so proud, and you're my celebration, right? And as much as mums are so much easier to say, they're a lot more emotionally in tune and can say those words. And it's generational after generation where fathers just are hardlined in terms of not being able to just say, I'm so incredibly proud of you. Well done. That's it, and leave it. And I love you.
I love you.
Yeah.
I had to go through therapy to realize that. Like, my dad was incredible.
Yeah.
Like, but he just wanted me to be better. Like, so I eventually didn't like him coming to any events. Whether it was rugby, I could have tackled lower. I could have done this better. Or if I was in a competition in the ocean, I could have caught more waves. I didn't do enough. He just wanted, and all I wanted to say was, I love you and you're enough, and give me a hug. But so I sit with there's two things, and one thing that came up earlier when we were speaking, and it's tied into the first. But like, people, the first thing is that people, I think, to let them to be able to allow them and not carry them any more than I have to, is we're all just trying the best we can generally.
Yeah.
I think there's mistakes, and there's ignorance, and there's negligence and stuff like that too. There's accident. debate this accidents versus mistakes, and is there anything ever negligence, or is it always just a mistake? But that's another podcast altogether. The other thing is like it came up recently, and it's a biblical quote that I love, and it's just like that. It's forgive them; they don't know what they do. It's obviously across
Huh?
different writings and different religious texts, but that just like it's just like amazing if I could do that.
Oh,
Like they're just
absolutely.
trying the best they can,
Absolutely.
and that's generally the case. And that was my father. He was trying the best. He knew how, and I could have told him.
Exactly.
It's lovely that you've been able to say to him,
Yeah.
"I need this." How is this?
I spoke to them, and I that conversation was, if you just said this, and I and I've understood and unpacked the intention, and you've done everything right for me to show up the way I am today, and I'm so grateful. If you'd done this a little differently, what would have happened is this is how I would have received it in a positive. As you meant it positively, your intent was right, but the words that came out and how you said it was very different
Mm,
to someone who's already looking for validation.
mm,
And when you reframe that, and today I have the most incredible relationship with my mom and dad. We're friends,
mm,
right? And I no longer look for validation with them anymore, and that is so liberating.
mm,
So liberating. And I can just show up, and we have an authentic relation. Not that it was inauthentic earlier, but it's just so much more comfortable that
mm,
then there's no expectations there
mm,
of showing up in a certain way, but I do that for everyone else in my life, other than my immediate family, still show up in that other version, uh, naturally, because I guess
mm,
I've been conditioned for so long in being that person. Yeah, you do your work, and you'll have moments where you can rein yourself in
mm.
and be aware. I need to be a lot more disciplined in doing that, but yeah,
In reining yourself in.
in yeah, in habits, right? It's like, okay, I know I'm going away from being my true self, or like, why am I looking for validation? Bring it in, like, sit with that moment, understand why you're looking for validation, or stopping at that point to just pause and reflect.
Mm,
But it's just the pace of my mind and giving in to the
mm,
voices in my head and just carrying on still, rather than just reining in and say, hey, be kinder to yourself. Like,
mm,
okay,
mm,
sit with this. Like, why are you going out of your way to serve, and why are you seeking validation at this point? Or why are you longing for belonging so much? Like,
mm,
and it's like me, I I can run. I'm born and raised in Kenya, in that altitude, and growing up, you go through physical education classes and all of that. We were running cross country, and those are the things. Like, you tell me to run a 10K right now, I could go in and run a 10K. No issues. I don't need to warm up or train or anything. But the part I hate the most is running on my own, because I am so uncomfortable sitting with myself.
mm,
Um, if you tell me I have to spend today on my own for this whole day in Durban, I'll have anxiety.
mm,
I'm always looking to fill that space and
mm,
time.
mm,
I love people and connection, but at the same time, I wish I had the balance of being
mm,
able to spend time with myself, because the voice in my head, and just sitting with that discomfort at times, or just reflection, and just get uncomfortable with it.
mm.
I,
So
I
I got you on that. I'm with you, and I want to just go back because you were speaking about your wife
yeah,
and
sh-
what how she helps there and in so many
yeah,
ways. But let's before we get there. So my wife is very similar. I feel in respect. She makes me want to be the best version of myself, and she believes that I'm this version that I'm
yeah,
not, and it's just amazing. But
yeah.
every now and again, I annoy her, which is if you spend any
Of course,
time with me, I have that. And what I say to people when they
we
say,
all have that gift.
yeah, what I say when people say, God, you're annoying," or like, I just say that, listen, you only have to spend this time with me. I'm with me all the time. And I only get to rest when I sleep. And that's when the voices switch off. And
Yeah.
that's it. And I thought you'd resonate with that. Yeah.
100%. And many a times I'll tell my wife, you know what? It's exhausting being me.
Mm.
Many a times it's so I'm like, I get what you have to deal with at times, and she'll tell me, like, she's like, boy, are you exhausting? And I'm like, yeah, I know that. And I'm like, imagine if this is how you feel, imagine how I feel.
Mm.
Right? It is exhausting. And for so long, even, the most frustrating thing is, what would you like for dinner? Or what would you like to do? You know what my counter is straight away? Well, what would you like to do? Straight away. It's like, no, you first. Like, what?
Mm.
Like, I'm not, it's almost like I'm not capable of putting myself first.
It's
Right?
interesting because it's a level of agreeableness which is counter to the entrepreneurship life.
Yeah.
Like, it's weird that because I'm the same,
Yeah.
and I've actually had to learn this is to go like it's part of knowing thyself.
Yeah.
It's very important. It's like the first thing, and
Yeah.
it sounds like you've done that work, and it's a work in progress. Always
Yes.
is, because there's so many things. Like, that's why the lifeline again I do continuously, because I'm like, oh, that's why I'm like this, and that's what I mean, this is just the first podcast, but that you're on, but like the first conversation that you're having out publicly like this, you it's a it's a journey. It's one of, actually, Wendy Mahoney, I guess, said it's the gift of learning yourself. So life's gift of her, she's way more eloquently. So go see that episode. But um, it's a gift to learn yourself. That's the journey.
Yeah.
That's the primary on the journey, is just knowing yourself, and to know thyself is the first thing, because then you can be of value to other people. And that sounds like that's very
Absolutely.
important to you, and it is important to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it sounds like and I met, we met at Ignite now.
Yeah, I
yeah,
know.
so-
She's the reason then that I moved to Dubai. And everything aligned, right? And look, through my life, so many things have aligned, and I believe I'm the luckiest person that that there is. But like, I got the opportunity to fall in love, and she encourages me to be me. She'll challenge me, right, to become to put in the work, to get to know me as well. She's the first person to, she's like, conflict is healthy. And she's helping me through that too. She's she's really the reason why I want to keep bettering myself as well. And many a times you'll be like, most people that see her, and those that know her will always tell me that, wow, you're punching above your weight.
Even
And then,
me. Don't worry.
and
The
then
sales guy.
and then those that haven't met her and just see her will also say the same thing, right? That you're punching above your weight. I'm now coming to a point where I'm saying, well, I think she's winning too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think she's won too. I'm coming around to that. And in
Well,
fact, today morning she sent me a message. She said, how did I ever get so lucky to be with you?
yeah, I love that, because it's something you touched on in the beginning, whereas
Yeah.
sometimes you gotta trust the people around you, and
Absolutely.
maybe they're right, like
Yeah.
like you
Yeah,
you,
and
you did for this.
Yeah.
I just want to do rapid fire, because
Sure.
we're like over a 2 hour mark here.
Oh, wow.
But it's been incredible. But there's questions from the thing, and there's the one was on, you mentioned it yesterday, and then it was reiterated by somebody that I asked, like, what should I ask Cookie? And it was regarding the importance of your heritage and being Kenyan and not Indian.
Yeah.
And Kenyan, even though it's Gujarati, you've touched on that.
Yeah.
You've educated us on that.
So I identify, and I run when I'm being called an Indian. That's because I haven't grown up in India. I've been born into the skin, right? And that's what most of us as humans quickly judge upon is the color of the skin as to who that person is. But I'm born into the skin. I'm born into, like, I said again, a family, Jainism, Hinduism. Not necessarily the most practicing, but speak the mother tongue, eat the food. I grew up as a vegetarian, so I eat Indian food, like Gujarati food, because that's carried on in generations. But other than that, I identify as a Kenyan first because there's an entire East African community, Indian East African community, which is very different in all mannerisms and thought process, the thinkings, and all of that to the Indian subcontinent. And we all identify as Tribe 49, which we recently got recognized as finally in Kenya, as that Indian community or tribe that we belong to in the country. But born and raised, 17 years of my life growing up from a kid, I'm Kenyan. I'm born and raised in that country. I speak the language. I'll eat the food. I interact with locals as a Kenyan. What's happening in India in politics or economy or any of that sort, I'm no interest in. I don't relate to. Like what's happening in Kenya, yes. When I meet a Kenyan across anywhere in the world, there's a connection, automatic connection. It's not the same with an Indian, and they see us as foreigners too in India. When I go out and I try and speak Urdu or Hindi or Gujarati to them, they know straight away that I'm not one of them, right? So I'm a Kenyan-born British Indian. British because, well, fortunately, I'm born with a British passport because we're a British colony, and my parents also and my grandparents had British passports, so I'm born to a British passport. But my formative years, my adulthood and my maturity from the age of 17 to 26, 27 was all out in England. And from a British schooling system also, and I've lived there for my formative years. So I still consider myself, and now I think in English, I speak in English and that, right? Drop me out in England, and I could easily find my way around. I know the system, so I identify with that. And then I say Indian because of the culture. But it's funny, like when I'm traveling, if I see Indians, and this is through no fault of theirs, like the billions of their population, their notion of personal space is different. They don't understand, right? But that's all got to do with the population size, right? There's the queuing system, for instance. If there were that many people and limited resource, obviously, and anywhere, it's just natural that what you're doing is you're going out and there's no queuing system. You need to get there to get what you need to do. And that's just the way it is out there. It's the environment, and they're conditioned accordingly. But what happens is many a times that is carried forward in their behavior in other parts of the world. And foreigners don't see, those locals in those countries don't see it with the same lens, and will not give them a benefit of the doubt. But it's considered as rude, or it's it's inappropriate. And so I find now that everywhere I travel, if they consider me as Indian, the perception is I'm Indian, and the way they interact with me or will become automatically that.
No wonder if you jump the queue.
Yeah,
That's
they're
what you
like,
say.
little treat, like I won't tip, right? Possibly, I'm not going to understand the nuances of the land, and I'll be me, littering or that personal space or anything of that sort. So there's a stereotype that's and there's so many people now traveling that's the impact that it's leaving. And so now what happens is I all of a sudden I can see that till they hear me speak. And maybe that's the accent that I've adopted now, that till they hear me speak, they're like, oh, this person's someone different, right? And then my mannerisms and things a little different.
Mm, mm,
The lots of thank yous and please and all of that is different.
mm.
So then it takes a little while to get comfortable
Okay.
and to be recognized. And I hate, even when YPO rejected me because I was Indian. And they were looking at a diversity recruitment at that point, and according to them, I was an Indian boy. And then that's why I hate it. It's like, I am, in terms of diversity, I always think of diversity means perspective. It doesn't mean race, religion, gender, or anything of those sorts. It's the experiences and the stories of life that you've traveled is your diversity, right? That's the definition of diversity. So when you put two people that are with the same skin color but have had a very different life journey, don't identify me as just the skin color, and that's why I yeah.
Yeah, I love it. It made me actually think a lot deeper on that outcome based versus opportunity based, and that journey and how diversity actually ties in. So often diversity is I think the easiest way for people to do it, and we visual animals, and it's how we have in groups,
Yeah.
out groups, and that sort of stuff. So I totally understand it, but like people need to spend more time on this, and how yeah, like outcome based is not a great way. We know that it's not but but access to opportunity
Yeah.
and what opportunity brings, it's actually deeper. The diversity is a lot deeper. In terms of now that transition, it was the next one that was also a big one, was your transition to Dubai and the costs. I think there was emotional cost. You're an emotional um character, and in the best way possible.
Yeah, I
Like, I
know,
love it. Yeah.
absolutely.
So like I felt when you're speaking about your parents, the emotion, and it was amazing. So we'll never lose that, please. And it's interesting, the Sydney and the futurism, the like things you spoke about. Is those I can resonate with what you're saying, and but still coming from Africa, and a third world
Yeah.
country, that continents and that sort of thing, that it is labeled and is. It looks so beautiful, like we were talking
Yeah.
about how beautiful it is outside. But there is something about the Dubai that is still, and those first world countries that I've been to, that are just the shiny new and like
Yeah.
dysfunctional.
Yeah,
Like,
in fact, it's
what's the cost? I think, what is the cost of that you said was the question.
so you know what it is? It's day-to-day life in Africa, or at least in Kenya. You're firefighting from the time you get up to the end of the day. And it's so much wasted energy. I get that it builds character, and this, you could look at it through different lens, and it gives you that advantage from being,
Grit. Yeah.
grit. But at the same time, having to do that over and over and over again with no sight of improvement for so long, in fact, on the contrary, getting worse, it's a case of, well, why am I doing this to myself? Like, if I have a limited energy or resource, and I could put it to better use somewhere else that allows me for a better outcome, then why not do that? But to be honest, all said and done, the move to Dubai was purely, it was chapter to close the old chapter and start the new, right? It's a new lease on life almost. That I went for I moved for financial freedom. I did the hustle. I did what I went to Africa to Kenya for. And then there's also parts that I want to leave behind, and I want to not necessarily run away from, or close the chapter and build a new life now. And as much as there's so much shininess in Dubai, there is options, right? I can choose to drive a Range Rover. I can choose to drive a little Suzuki. I can eat at the fanciest of restaurants, and I could destructure all that food, and I'll get it in the cheapest price. I could go to a restaurant and have it's called an egg paratha, for instance. The little cafeterias, holes in the walls, all across Dubai, and for 2 dirhams, which is like, yeah, 2 dirhams is like what, 8 rands. I get a hot paratha with eggs, salad, and all of that, with a cup of tea, which is a beautiful meal, right? As a beautiful breakfast, just on the go, for instance, at times. But I could go to a restaurant and get that same plated up with the ambience and all of that and pay about 200 dirhams for it, right? So I can choose the kind of life I want to live, but the kind of people I get to interact with on a daily basis. There's an app that it's called Dubai Now. I can connect with the police. I can pay all my bills. I can pay for my parking wherever I am. I can make charitable donations and see where that goes to. Electricity, like everything is, it's so futuristic. And it's a 50-year-old city that's been built up into what it is today. And to experience that, what I saw it as was, it was the best of England and Africa, Kenya. That I still get to see so many Kenyans, Ugandans, and all of that in the service sector, and I interact with them on a daily basis, right? So, but it's got the infrastructure of the modern world. It's 4 hours, for 4.5 hours flight, so I could have breakfast at home, and I could have lunch with my parents. I could have breakfast at home or a lunch at home, and I could have dinner with my sister in London. It was pretty much the midway point. It's the one place that I can travel one flight to nearly anywhere in the world, right? And with this new phase in life, I travel a lot because this is something, Harris the Third, when we were talking about him, and we were thinking when you're a child, and even at Ignite, was it Clifton? What was Chris? What was? Yeah, we were talking about when you're a kid, and think about that when you close your eyes. What was that dream? What were the dragons and the castles and all that? And for me, it was travel. And I reflected upon it, and I'm like, what was it? And I'm like, I just love the people, adventure, culture. Just, I wanted to be out of this. I just wanted to travel. And funnily enough, I realized that. And I'm doing that. I may not necessarily always be doing it for the right reasons. A lot of it's got to do with work and EO. And I'm always going in and out and doing things. But that serves a beautiful purpose of its own itself, right? But it's all about traveling. And I can do it so easily in Dubai. And it's made it even more comfortable and more more comfortable because it's just one flight and I know the service and it's Emirates, and it's a place where it keeps pushing your boundaries. And as much as it pushes, I've got this grounding. So I've come to respect Islam, right? Back in the day, this Hindu, Indian, Hindu, Hindu and Muslim thing, constant. It's what you're brought up with, this propaganda. And funnily enough, now I'm married into Islam. And back in the day, when I used to see ladies in the abayas or burqas and fully covered, there was this notion of not resentment. I think it was like, I don't. It's from not knowing, but not even curiosity to want to know. It was just this condition for so long from externally that they're different. They're not necessarily good. And now being in Dubai and before being married or engaged or any of that, it's a case of coming to respect and learn more about these around Islam and how beautiful a religion that is, or their people especially are, right? And the mindsets in that. I got to interact with that, and I'm like, oh, like, why have I been so resistant to this, and why have I had these barriers and all of that? I happened to fall in love with a Muslim girl as well, And I was just, I'm leaning in on the curiosity. I'm exploring the religion. Um,
Have you seen that? Sorry,
yeah, sure.
that there's an illustration or cartoon, and it's a a Muslim woman. There are two women,
Yeah,
and there's one thought bubble. I think I'm doing. Hopefully, I'm doing this justice, but and Muslim women in a burqa and dressed traditionally, and then the European woman potentially or whatever
yeah,
it is in a bikini,
yeah.
and the thought bubble is, I can't believe they're making you wear that.
Yeah.
And
I
I
would
was
agree.
just like, the first time I was like, oh wow, okay. And it was like
Yeah,
I can't believe they expect you to wear that, like,
yeah.
or they're making whatever it is. But it
And
was
it's
just
just
so
perspective,
interesting.
right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
just in perspectives.
yeah.
Same thing.
And then, yeah, it's accorded me opportunities. It's just, I sold my car. I had a Toyota FJ Cruiser in Kenya, for instance. I sold that for the same money because of the taxation and all that, duties and all that. I could go out in Dubai, and for that same amount of money, I could buy a Range Rover, for instance. It's very easy. They've
Mm.
designed the mechanism to spend so easy, all that shiny stuff.
Okay.
But what it's made me do is become a lot more self-aware and actually a lot more humble. So it's done for me exactly the opposite moving to Dubai.
Mm.
Because I no longer want to wear fancy watches. I no longer want to wear I no longer want to drive the fancy of cars.
Mm.
I don't want, the funniest thing is I got gifted a Remova, fancy Japanese bags. And we were thinking about, and, we were talking about it. And I'm like, we forget the purpose. It's to carry, from place A to place B. It's to actually transfer. That's all it's there for. But they make it luxurious and so expensive that we're now so conscious about the actual article as opposed to the purpose.
Mm.
And it becomes a liability, like fancy watches,
Mm.
right? Like fancy cars. It's like, oh no, did I get a scratch on this?
Mm-hmm.
And it just brought me to that realization because of the amount of opulence. Supercars was something that I grew up with aspiring towards. It's like, wow, so fancy. It's a nuisance. I don't want to hear another Lambo. Yeah, it's flipped. It's flipped my mindset that even with all that opulence, it's brought me humility. I'm like, when I look at it, and every time I'm going back to Kenya and I look at the poverty, I grew up with that. And we've always supported lifting people from that poverty for sure, because we live in that world.
Mm.
But it's become a lot more intentional and a lot more aware living in Dubai. So yeah, it's kind of flipped that around for me. That when I go back, like a lot more aware, because back in the day, when you always see it day in day out, it's like you become used to it.
Yeah.
But now it's on the contrary.
You want to give us your quote?
Yeah, it's people forget what you say. People forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you make them feel. And that stuck with me for so long. I continue to live life by it. On the same context, on the flip side is I also want someone to think of me in that way. And now that I unpack it, it's like I want to be seen. I want someone to make me feel that way. And it's more internal that I show up externally for. So yeah.
Is there anything else you would like to close with?
No, look, I'd like to say this is such an incredible journey that and this conversation. So many times we take things for granted in life that we sit and actually walk through and talk through and reflect. And that Shaoshin mindset, right? And it's just those learnings and reflections today, because where I am in life. We had this conversation a couple of years ago. I may have come across with some different learnings. Today, I've come up with some new learnings, and I'm going to walk away and definitely do some self work. But this has been a learning curve, and I'm so grateful for this, genuinely. Yeah.
Pronunciation quickly of your last name.
Shah.
Shah.
Yeah,
Shah.
Shah.
Just
Shah.
a Cookie.
Kuki Shah.
Well, if that's it, then it's been our pleasure.
It's been an honor, yeah.
The incredible Kuki Shah.